there, Basement Lounge fans. Welcome to another installment of the VIP Table. This is the special Patreon-powered show where we sit down with a special guest every month and talk to them about their career and what they got going on. We've had a couple of great guests so far, and our guest today is very special. We owe a lot of success of this show to this guy and everything that he's been putting on and all the help he does for podcasters out there. Just to, forewarning you, the show is powered and sponsored by PODDECKS. You guys can use the code TBL10 at poddecks.com to go get 10% off your total purchase. And that would not be possible without the guest that we have here. And that is, as I admit him into the Zoom call, Travis Brown from PODDECKS.
What's going on, my man?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Living the dream, man. Don't wake me up.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll try not to wake you up, but we'll also try not to put you to sleep today as we talk with you. Travis is the CEO, the mighty leader of PODDECKS and the Podcast Builder Club, and we're going to talk about all that, and as well as just how you got to this point in life, Travis. Let's start off right away with PODDECKS, because they have been a favorite product of mine, even, and I'm not just saying that as someone with a show sponsored by PODDECKS. I've been using it for a while now. Where did this idea of PODDECKS come from, man?
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. This whole ride over the last year was amazing, because PODDECKS was actually an accident. So I've been editing podcasts for a long time. As an agency, you run out of time. I can't have any more clients. So I made a course. I'm like, I'll still be able to help people podcast and make really great content. And so as a bonus for the course, I was going to send people a deck of cards with my favorite, what I at the time called friends questions. I had a list of questions on my phone that when I was at a dinner party or the conversation was just kind of boring, I would spice it up and I would ask these questions. And people would always freak out. They'd be like, oh, that was so much fun. You're the life of the party. And I'm like, it's really easy when you've got a really great question. So launched the course. I sold 2 and no more. And I was like, that's weird. And then I started promoting that I had these cards that you could elevate your conversations, elevate your interviewing skills. And people kept emailing me saying, I don't want the course. What are those cards? So I said, this must be something people are interested as a tool. So I pressed 10 decks and made an ad on Instagram with my phone, just made a little video and put it up, and I sold out. And then I pressed 100 and I sold out. And here I am now with thousands of podcasters all over the world using PODDECKS as a tool to spark conversations, to have fun, to be spontaneous. And I keep a 5-year journal. And every day I write down 3 things that happened. And it just happened recently where it was just PODDECKS idea. And it was and then a year later, here I am. I'm connected to amazing podcasters like yourself. And we have this community and we have an app now. And I'm like, who would have thought? I never would have guessed this is what would have allowed me to be so connected to people.
It's funny you mentioned how far you've come, and I remember that Instagram ad. I remember it was 3 a.m. and I was just on my phone, lighting up my face, scrolling. And I was like, what the hell is this? And
yeah,
I think as I ordered it, because the cool thing with the app is that if you order a physical deck, you can use the order code.
Yep.
Have the deck added to the app. I ordered my decks so long ago, I can't add them to the app.
Oh, we got to get you your order number then, Mike.
But either way, but regardless, it's that's just how far back this has gone and how far it's come since then. And just how much when this show first started and I was really getting my feet wet with the one-on-one interviewing, how much that interview deck really did help. We turned it into kind of a rapid fire questions game. And it's great to see how versatile this tool can be. But what I'm curious about is, because you have the Podcast Builders Club podcast where you drop 10. Where does your podcasting background come from before?
Sure.
PODDECKS?
Yeah. So I used to be a touring musician. I used to play rock and roll, punk rock. I don't know if you heard of the Vans Warped Tour, but I used to tour all over the country and play music. And so being in front of a microphone, being an extrovert, entertaining really just comes natural to me from that aspect. But through that journey, I learned how to record music, record bands, and learned all about audio engineering. So once I finally decided to no longer be a gypsy and sleep on couches and party all day, I said, I got to get a job. So I would drive to this cubicle, a job I hated. But at some point I learned about podcasts. I started listening to podcasts and I was like, dude, these are all sound terrible. And based on the experience that I have, I could probably help people make like really good sounding podcasts. And that's what I decided to do. I was like, maybe I can help people. So the first thing I did, which is what everybody does, is I started a podcast with my friends, and we, shot the shit and joked around and stuff. And then as I started to help other people, I had less time to do my own podcast. I was working on everybody else's podcast. But during those times, I would do little projects. So I did an audio documentary about a band called the Smoking Popes that I love, where it's just all interviews and stitched together. And then I did a show called Unlimited Data, where it was just like jokes and Trump jokes and bits. And I've done a bunch of different things, but I thought, hey, I'm always telling people ways that they can grow their shows. Why don't I just podcast about podcasting, which I know is like super meta, but it was a great way for me to get back into podcasting, because how disingenuous is it to be the guy who's teaching you how to podcast if he doesn't even podcast himself? So I thought this will be a perfect way where I can do the thing I love to do and share some value and meet new people.
And that's great. I was talking with some folks on Clubhouse the other day about getting into podcasting and brainstorming new ideas. And I come up with ideas for shows all the time, because what I'll find is I want a certain kind of show to listen to. And if I can't find it, I'm like, well, then screw it. I'll make it myself because it's not there.
The best. Make the art you want to see in the world, man. If you don't hear the music you want to listen to, go make it. If you don't see the art you want to see, go make it. If you don't have the podcast you want to listen to, go make it.
And there's so many, especially in the last year with how the pandemic, the silver lining of everything is all these tools like Zoom and StreamYard, things that may have existed prior to the pandemic, but have now seen this huge influx because of the necessity and the way that we've been able to integrate those things into podcasting just in the last few months. Things like Sounder and Podpage that have come to fruition, really changed the game. And it was through you that I discovered those things. How, can you kind of give us an idea of like how you've seen podcasting evolve since like when you first got started to where it's at now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when it first started out, it was like mostly interview podcasts. The format being that like, I'm going to start a show and I'm going to find people to interview. And that was like, what I would say is 90% of what podcasts were. It was like two people having a conversation, three people having a conversation. And as we've gone closer to 2021 from a decade ago, content has become more curated. So true crime just took a skyrocket because people really like these audio documentary storytelling kind of podcasts. And of course, the news, right? People have completely adopted listening to podcasts as a news source as opposed to watching Channel 7. So it started to evolve because people realized that they could disseminate information through this medium to the entire globe without any censorship, without needing to be on a platform, freely, which is amazing. Because 20 years ago, if you had a pirate radio station, you would get like your door kicked in by the FBI and they'd take you down. But now it's like anybody can start a radio station and do pretty much anything they want on it. So what I'm seeing a trend in now is more niche content. So as opposed to just having a conversation with two people, it's more like focused in on these little hyper niches like fishing or baking or TV shows. With the pandemic, every celebrity was stuck and they all had to start a podcast, which brought thousands more ears into the pool, right? So really great for podcasting. And I think it's the best medium because you can listen to it when you're doing other things. It's pretty easy to make, in my opinion. Obviously, I have an audio background, but like as opposed to filming a YouTube video and editing it, having to do all that stuff, this is way easier. And you don't have to write anything down. You can just talk. And so it really makes it really gives everybody a level playing field to share the information they want to share, as opposed to having to have a camera or having to have a TV show that'll put your stuff out. I think it's really come a long way as far as the acceptance from the general population, and then the technology, like you said, Zoom, that allows people to become creators.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, I do stand up here in town, and we were doing a roast, and everyone who went up on stage when it was their turn to take shots at me, it was always about the fact that he has a podcast that nobody listens to, which may or may not have been true. But it's so funny that I look to now, I have those same people coming to me like, So like, how do I get into podcasting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were the outlier of the group, and the butt of the joke is now the mentor.
And for me, I got into it because I came from a radio background, and with the way the radio industry is taken, but still kind of wanted to feel some of that, scratch that itch a little bit, is where my love for podcasting came from. And I actually remember when I was in high school, I for career day, I interviewed a radio DJ, and he said, and he was also a comedian. The thing about podcast radio, and I guess podcasting as well, that appeals to comedians and entertainers, being a musician like yourself,
Yeah.
is you get to have a microphone in front of your face all the time.
Yes.
And it's just you're creating, like you said, you're creating your own content, creating your own shows, and that you don't have to worry about. I mean, you can obviously, like, if you want to, but you don't have to worry about the video aspect, and
Right.
you just got to sound good.
Yeah, you could podcast straight up from your phone, like right now. You could just like open up the voice memo app and start telling your best story. And you could even just forward it to your friends in a text, and you kind of have a podcast. I mean, it's not the barrier to entry is so low that people can get into it without a radio background. Like, you've got the awesome voice and the radio background, but a lot of people don't. They're just like, I would love to share my stories, but I don't know what to do. And so, we have this big opportunity that, I hope people have taken something away from COVID and been like, okay, I'm paused. What is the thing I really want to try now, and try that, or learn, or grow, or move, and it's been a really great year for podcasting. I mean, obviously death and sickness is terrible, but I'm so happy that people have finally said, you know what, like, anything's possible. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. I'm going to finally do that podcast I've been started talking about,
And it's never like you mentioned, it's never been easier with things like Sounder, or I know people are touch and go on this, but like Anchor, where you literally can do everything from an app on your phone. And I remember talking with a friend of mine. We were working on a scripted serial show right when the pandemic first hit, and I was thinking, like, we're like, people who are making content like podcasts are going to see just this influx of new listeners. And what I didn't count on was also just a massive influx of content. And so what I think ended up happening was we saw a huge increase in listenership, but we also saw an increase in shows. And it kind of almost like I don't want to say canceled each other out, but kind of
a little bit
raised the whole thing out. I don't know if you've seen something, if you've noticed anything similar to that, or if you've seen something different.
So what I've seen is that with a decline in travel and commuting, that is typically a time that people would turn their car into like a mobile learning station or entertainment station. So we lost some of that activity. And, with more podcasts out to listen to, like I mentioned, the celebrities all came to the table. People had to make decisions because it's a zero-sum game. If I listen to your podcast, I'm typically not listening to another podcast, right? So that's where the really good content wins, is because people will stick with you. But having all those options made it a little bit chaotic for what content do I actually listen to? So one of the trends I've seen is just sort of like a little bit shorter content, more that sitcom, 25 to 35 minute bite size, or something that fits into your routine, like walking a dog for 15 minutes in the morning, and being able to be either entertained or educated through that. And once everybody gets poked twice here, the longer form content will pick back up, because people have lots of places to go and things to do, and they're going to want to get that entertainment in the same capacity. So with all growth, there are challenges, but I do think with the world opening back up, we'll also see a decrease in content now, because people will be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. It's too hard. And then all the people that have really developed their system and developed their audience, if they keep going, they're going to win, because when you take all those shows out that they were listening to, that they're no longer listening to, and you're still there, well, there's two more ears for the podcast.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about that the other day, how I used to travel a lot for doing stand-up, or doing, I was making short films, so for film festivals. And when I knew I had a trip coming up, I'd usually be on the road, 9 to 12 hours. I would intentionally like not listen to podcasts that I had been listening to. So that way, when I had the 12-hour drive, I could just marathon episodes.
Yeah, you'd build it up. Yeah.
And it would make the drive go by so much shorter. Now I have found that since the most traveling I do is my 15-minute drive to work every day. Yeah, I'm not digesting the longer, because a lot of the shows I listen to are like longer movie review shows and stuff. I'm not digesting as many of those because when I'm at the house, I'm doing
correct
things or making things as opposed to
right.
just sitting in the car. So that's interesting you mentioned that.
I can give you a flip side to that. My wife, who has known about podcasts forever, was never a podcast consumer until COVID hit. And then because her commute is too short, so she could never really get into anything. And now she's obsessed. I watch her go like, oh, what podcast am I going to listen to today? And I just laugh because I'm like, I've been telling you about podcasts for a decade. And now you're officially like, you're the consumer. And I really have a creator mindset. So I don't consume as much as I used to because I'm trying to make more stuff. But it's interesting to see somebody who is completely aware of a medium who's now finally all in. So I think it's win-win when it comes to listenership and creatorship.
It's funny with the being, because you're in the creator, you're not listening to as many. I do the same thing with people. Ask me all the time because I do stand up, like, oh, did you see so and so special? I don't watch a lot of comedy specials because I'm trying to write jokes. I don't want their stuff in my head.
Sure.
And so when you're so focused on making the content, I can see how that would be a thing where you don't want to listen to too many other podcasts because you don't want necessarily to like be
the unconscious influence.
Yeah. You don't want to be too derivative without realizing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can imagine, like, as a comedian, it's really important to make sure that you're creating something original. And, it's anything that we look at influences us, no matter if we know it or not. So, you have to be careful. But I do think a lot of people fall into the trap of like only consuming and wishing they were creators. And what that requires from you as a creator is to carve out time where you're not consuming and you're actually spending time making things. So it's a delicate balance. Now I still listen to podcasts, and, I got a Bluetooth speaker in the shower, and, of course my car and all those places. So I do still listen to podcasts, just not as much as I was when I was out in the world, because I just maximizing my time.
On the steering a little more towards a little more personal here. So you mentioned, you were touring musician for a number of years, on the Vans Warped Tour, which is awesome. So you're married with kids.
Yeah. Lockdown.
How long have you been married for?
I've been married for 13 years. Yeah.
Right.
Happily married for 13 years. And I got 2 kids. I got a 5 and a 3-year-old, a boy and a girl. I got a perfect set. So I've got the old snipperoni, and I'm done. And it's hilarious because my kids, what you can't see here is an entire just shipping station of PODDECKS. And so my kids think a podcast is called PODDECKS. So when they come to my desk, they want to play with the Roadcaster, and they say, I want to do a PODDECKS. I want to do a PODDECKS, which I just think is hilarious. So
horrible. I love it. How much do you love that Roadcaster, man?
It's a great piece, man. It was probably one of the better investments. Like, I've had this particular microphone, the 7B, for a decade, because I used to use it for recording bands and vocals. So it's just something I had, but the Roadcaster really just, it streamlines so many of the things in the process to have great audio. And so, I mean, if they sold a 2-channel one, I would buy it. I don't need all 4 channels, but it's a no-brainer investment for any podcaster, in my opinion.
I think people at first look like it, because I mean, it is made by Rode. It's expensive a little bit, yes. But I can tell you it was the best check. I mean, it still hurt. It physically hurt to press the checkout button on. It was like, ow, but it was so worth it in the end.
But if you look at $700 and you amortize it over 5 years, would you pay $125 to have a really great piece of equipment that makes your life easier for 7 years? Or would you rather just keep pressing all these buttons on your DAW trying to figure it out? Like, in my opinion, it levels the playing field for everybody to have great audio.
Well, I got into that point too, where I was like, I keep spending the low dollars, but I'm always having to constantly upgrade, constantly get something new. Let me just spend the big money and have the thing that's going to same thing with the 7B.
Yep.
With investing in I have a custom build PC. It was like, I might as well just spend the money and have the thing that's going to last a long time, as opposed to always being temperamental. as much as I love I still love and use my Zoom recorder from now
Yeah.
and then, but
Yeah.
Well,
there's an old saying, it's buy cheap, buy twice. And it's true. No matter what you're buying, you buy a cheap car, you're going to buy it again. You buy a cheap TV, you're going to buy another one again. So like, what I recommend for people that think they want to start a podcast is first just use your phone and record your best story and listen back to it. And if it gives you goosebumps, if it like really lights you up, then start looking for a microphone. But people, they buy all this stuff because they think, okay, this is the stuff I need, but it's not always the right thing that they need. And so if you figure out that you really want to do this, then you can make a good investment in things that'll last you forever. Like this microphone, you could put it in a nuclear, fusion machine and it would still work. So if you buy good equipment, you're going to make a good product, and then you can keep podcasting, which is the whole key.
I get that question a lot. Like, how much money should I have set aside? What should I get? I'm always like, I always tell them the same thing. It depends on how much you want to do this. It depends on how much you're willing to invest. If you want to do this for shits and giggles, $20 tops. If you're looking to, because I think it's because they see the setup I have and they're like, do I need to spend all that money? It's like, no, I chose to. I used to have people come over to the set for the first time in the old place, and they'd say, wow, man, you must have a really good job. And I would just tell them, no, I just make really poor financial decisions. I'm putting my money in the wrong things, allegedly, but I love it. How did your wife first react when you told her you're going to quit your job to sell PODDECKS?
So she's very supportive. So I'm the creative of the family. So I'm the guy who wants to make things, and she's more analytical. So as soon as I could show her the numbers that I could, meet my end of the bargain of our finances, that she was totally fine with it. So, my advice for anybody who's married or in a relationship is to set a budget, figure out what your life costs, split it between you and your spouse. And then, we have separate bank accounts and we have a joint bank account. And so all the money for the bills goes in the joint bank account. We have our own money. We have our own, we have a savings account together, and we never fight about money because we know exactly what we need to do. And we put the money in there, and the rest is just like, if you want to buy 1 million lipsticks, go crazy. If I want to buy cameras and lights and all this stuff, it's on me. Right. So she's super supportive, and I don't think I could have done it without a supportive spouse, because there's some days where I wake up and I'm like, am I crazy? Like, I just had $15,000 worth of decks show up on my front door, boxes and boxes and boxes. And sometimes I go like, what am I doing? Right. But you got to be a little crazy. You got to believe. So.
And getting into, I also want to talk because you just launched this thing in the last week. Podcast Builder Club is you're going full legit with this. Tell the folks who maybe don't know about the Podcast Builder Club, like what it is and what you're doing.
So this all started out by building a really great Facebook group. So I've got a Facebook group. It's free. It's 640 real podcasters, and we've kept the group really clean. So we don't allow people to just spam and leave. It's really real people. And I think it's probably the best podcast group I've ever been a part of. And so through that, I'm able to help 640 podcasters through this group, try to give them tips, tricks, networking, training. But at the same time, I'm sort of limited in what I can do for 640 people. So I've been investing in mastermind groups for a long time. I'll spend, between $1,000 and $3,000 every quarter on being around people who are where I want to be, because I truly believe that if you're around people who are learning and growing, you're going to grow faster. So, I invest in those things, and I see the growth 5, 10, 100 times growth in the things I'm doing. So I said, I'm going to try to do this with just like 10 podcasters. I started something called the Inner Circle, where I can have 10 people come in, pay a small monthly fee, and I can really get hands-on with their podcast, because it's really hard to help 600 people all at once. But if I can really get hands-on with like 10 different podcasts and show people the growth, they'll know that I know what I'm talking about here, and that they'll see my mission is to help other people grow these big shows. So it was just kind of the next step in, you come into my world with PODDECKS and you got a tool. And then I do have some courses and some things, and I have an app, and then I have the group. And so the community aspect and teaching is something that brings me a lot of joy. And so I do charge a lot of money to consult like big companies, but I wanted to make something that was affordable, that people could invest in. And if they didn't show up, it would hurt just enough to make them realize like, oh, I should be showing up to these group meetings and stuff. So I'm super excited about it. It's just about full. And I can't wait to like document where they start and then where we end up in a few months or years or however long they stay.
And, you know, I can personally attest to like that you guys know what you're talking about. You know, we've implemented so many of the things that you've suggested over the last couple of years into our show, and as you know, we've seen a really nice build in momentum with our show within the last month, and everything from trying out Sounder and you know, Pod Page was huge. The Pod Page thing was massive for us, but also just little things like I was writing the most overly detailed, cluttered show notes for every episode. It was ridiculous and it was driving me crazy. And just even that, when I remember the episode where you explained how to just break it down into, you know, the 3 questions, the bullet points, and I was like, there's no way, like I was like, is it really that simple? And then I was just like, wow, this doesn't hurt my head nearly as much anymore. Just the loss of headache alone made it worth it.
Absolutely. And that's one of my main goals is to like reduce overwhelm, right? I like the number one thing that's going to keep people from podcasting is putting all these barriers in front of them. So if I can break all those barriers down and keep them creative and keep them doing the thing that's fun, it brings me a lot of joy. And when you tell me these things, like this is what fills up my tank. It's not dollars in a bank account. It's when people tell me like, hey, listen, that one thing changed my podcast. It really, I can't even express, like, it fills me up again so I can keep going. So thank you for sharing that, because that's why I do this. It's because I'm passionate about it, and it's I want to change the world in this capacity. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to know too, like, you know, we hear all the time, we see people with podcasts and video shows who talk about their sponsors, and you're like, well, they're selling something. You know, we reached out to you guys, you know, through your affiliate program because we had used your product. We use your podcast and your information, and we were benefiting from it so much. So we really wanted to, you know, have that partnership. So it's like, well, we got to help, you know, drive traffic towards these guys and sharing that, because it really, and for those who haven't maybe seen the social media, I mean, we crossed 5,000 downloads this past week, that's
awesome, man. That's huge.
It's insane to me when I think this is the 3rd podcast I've done in my life, and I'm just sitting back, just kind of. I messaged my co-host Mike about it, and he called me as soon as he got the message, just like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
we're two comedian idiots sitting here talking shit about the Snyder cut and all that. And it's like, okay, I guess we're actually, and you know, as guys who've been doing stand up for a long time, it's like, okay, I guess we know what we're doing here, something, but. Yeah, we lend a lot of that to you, to the point now where like I look forward to every time a new episode drops. Like, what new tool is he? Because I'm so nerdy about this now. What new tool is he going to point me in the direction of? So,
well, part of the formula that I use is that I'm testing a lot of different things, and then some of those things I end up using right personally, and then I'll share the things that I actually use with my audience to try to save you time of doing all the experimenting that I'm doing. So I'm glad it works. And, you know, I know it's hard when you hear about a new tool, then you're like, oh, now I need to get this. But I'm just trying to bring the latest and greatest that can help people, you know, save time and elevate their content and get it out to the right people.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love everything you guys are doing. I'm so glad we could bring you on. Before we let you go, we're gonna like play in the inner circle here. We're gonna pull up the PODDECKS app.
Nice.
And we're gonna ask you 3 questions from. Is there a particular deck that you are fond of? I know we just.
Oh man, I like them all. I mean, I love the goofy ones, like the WTF and the funny ones. That's more of my, like, I have sort of a blue sense of humor, so
perfect.
I can be serious, but this seems like an opportunity to have some fun.
This is the chance to have some fun. I'm going to pull up the WTF deck. I'm just going to shuffle through some random cards here. By the way, guys, if you haven't already, I'm going to schmoo it right here on the PODDECKS app on your phone. Check it out. You got digital decks there. One of the things I love cool is you also got the podcasting toolbox. You can scroll down, find equipment. They've got budgetary options as well. You can also check out these explore and learn options. I pimp this this app all the time.
Nice, dude. Thank you. Yeah, we put a new course up today. So we got some mini courses that you can consume in about 10 minutes and apply to your show. And we do monthly giveaways. I believe that boom arm that
Right
you got
here.
right there was a PODDECKS app winner right there.
Love it. Love this thing so
I was
much.
so jealous. I went out and bought one for myself, Mike. So
It's mostly because, and I thought talked about this on the unboxing too, is like with this heavy microphone, I was always having to constantly adjust the screw. This thing is so sturdy. I don't have to adjust the screw to move it. It's
it's got the nice pocket to hold the cable in there. It's beautiful.
That was my favorite thing. I'm as a tech guy, cable management.
Yeah.
So, all right. First one in the WTF deck. If you were a member of the Spice Girls, what would your spice handle be?
Oh God, I think I'm too old. I know there's a scary spice, and then there's a ginger spice.
There's a ginger spice.
Do you know all of them?
Oh God, so I'm trying to channel my inner '90s kid. Ginger, scary, sporty, posh, and baby.
Okay, do I have to be one of them, or can I just make up my own?
I think you should make up your own.
All right, I would be bald spice.
Or shiny spice.
Cue ball spice. Yeah, dude. I mean, the 90s were so amazing for the 5-person pop group, right? I mean, like to have 5 people dancing and like 5 people singing any song is too much, you know?
Yeah. Look at you, Pentatonics. I'm kidding. I love you guys. Then I just watched a 2020 documentary about how like all those boy bands were run by this like one guy who stiffed
Ron Perlman
stiffed them all out of their money, and they talked to like Lance Bass, who was like when he sat down to get his first check and he thought it was going to be for like, you know, thousands of dollars. It was like $1,500, and I was like, ow.
Yeah, the music industry is not fun when you're signing contracts and you're young. Like it's really set up for anyone who's a musician, like you're in the best position now where you don't need a major label, because major labels just spend money on your behalf and then they like make you pay it back. So those guys all got, I mean, I'm sure they're fine, but at that point, that Perlman dude made a ton of money.
And fled to Cuba.
Yes.
Hashtag free Britney. Let's see. What type of contest do you think would be fun to judge?
Ooh, well, I mean, obviously like a hot dog eating contest, a wet t-shirt contest, anything that has to do with like the longest, right? Like I can play the drums for the longest, you know, the world record, like just watching people pretty much fall apart after they're fatigued. That would be great. What about you? What would you like to judge?
I've judged a lot. I would not that I'm a judgy person. I mean, I am. I like to tell people I don't judge. I'm just a gossipy bitch. I would love to judge. I'd love to judge like a sandcastle contest.
That's a good one.
I'm always so impressed because I was the kid. The sandcastle was bucket, upside down, twig.
Yep.
That's it. I'm done. I'd love to judge one of those hardcore sandcastle contests, and God, they're so good.
Yeah, some elaborate sandcastling.
I lived down south for a number of years in Columbia in South Carolina, which is the capital. So we had the state fair there every summer or every fall. So it was always a big thing to go to. And they always had the big like sandcastle of the year that was like bigger than my garage. And like if it was sturdy enough, you probably could have walked on it. Just that stuff always floors me. I love artistic stuff like that I can't do.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of the world is that there's something out there for everybody. You know, people love trains and they love sandcastles, and it's like, it's amazing. There's a little bit of something for everybody. So
everybody's nerdy about something.
It's true.
Everybody's nerdy about something. Let's get one more of these in here. Have you ever done something unbelievable only to have no one around to see it?
Oh man, like pretty much once a day. I'm trying to think of the last thing I did that was unbelievable. I would say that like I'm one of these 1 in a million guys where like my belt loop will get stuck on something that there's no possible way that if you tried, like I'll be walking past someone or like, for example, walking on the street and then there's a guy riding a bike and somehow like my belt loop gets hooked in his handlebars or something where there's no way you could have ever even tried to do it. I'm the 1 in a million guy. Or like I'll drop something that bounces perfectly into some place where I'll never be able to get it again. It's like the slot is that big. So that's probably a reoccurring theme in my life, is that there's no one there to see it. You know, it's like, did you just, there's no one will ever believe me. How about you? You got any good?
I had a moment of like pure Matrix save the day the other day. I was putting in a new shelving unit in my kitchen, and my cat kept jumping up on the counter, and she was about to knock a glass off, and so in a fit, I like reached out to grab the glass and figured, screw it, the shelf will drop, I'll pick it up later. And I had extended out my back leg, and the shelf just happened to fall right on my back leg and not hit the floor.
Yes.
Sitting there like pirouetted on one leg like a flamingo, like I live alone. No one else is here. Yeah. It's just so not fair.
I was going to say, maybe you were like, I know you cook and sometimes you do the cooking tutorials. Maybe you took a bite of something one time and you were like, you gave yourself the Heimlich maneuver or something on a chair.
No, I'll tell you what, for every one of those cooking videos I put up, there's about 10 that never make the cut because I take a bite of it and I'm like, no.
Yeah, there you go.
This didn't work. Well, Travis Brown, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here on the VIP table in the basement lounge. And
dude, it's my pleasure. I got to tell you, you make me laugh at least once a day with your Instagram or your TikToks. And if everybody here could just do me one favor, like all I want you to do is just, as soon as this episode's over, go to the podcast app you're listening to and give the show a 5-star review. But don't just give it like the stars, actually write something in there, because people like Mike are coming to you consistently, putting together content, trying to entertain you constantly. And the least you could do is, give them a little slap on the back and say, hey, job well done, because reviews mean a lot to us podcasters. They help people find us. And it's sort of just one of those things that you can do for free to help out and keep this show getting exposed to more people so they could be entertained. So that's my ask.
I appreciate that so much, man. And do the same for the Podcast Builder Club over on, and it's easier than ever to do it if you just go to our respective websites, because the page has the review page. You can leave it right there.
They can leave you a voicemail too. Have you used that?
Use a voice. Those are so cool. I tested it out the other day and I was like, I wish people would do this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Download them. It's our new website. If you're a podcaster and you haven't used Podpage yet, like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever.
It's the jam right there. I'm
gonna roll the red carpet for you, sir, and I'm gonna let you go ahead and plug away.
Plug away. Well, hey, listen, you can find me at PODDECKS.com, or you can find me at PODDECKS on Instagram. Those are the two best places to find me. I'd love for you to say, hey, I heard you on Mike's podcast. If you're interested in having great conversations, you can check out PODDECKS or the PODDECKS app. And thanks again for having me, man. I was honored to be invited and be a part of your legacy here.
I appreciate it so much. And you guys head on over to PODDECKS.com. Check out, get these. You think you're out of the hats now, right?
They're sold out, man. I made 50 and they're all gone. So if you got one, you're in the club.
But you got shirts, you got mugs, and you've got the decks themselves. You've got the episode deck. I'll
give you a little sneak peek. We got new decks coming. Here's 2 of the new decks. Let's see if I can get that in focus. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those boxes are nice.
Yeah, dude. We really spent some time on the packaging to make it very elaborate. There's some good stuff coming. So keep your eyes peeled.
So head on over to PODDECKS.com and don't forget, use the code TBL10 to get 10% off your total purchase at checkout. And with that being said, we're gonna say a bid adieu to Travis Brown, and we will talk to you later, sir.
Thanks, Mike. See ya.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for this month's installment of the VIP table. Once again, make sure you check out the Podcast Builder Club and the PODDECKS app, and go to PODDECKS.com and use the code TBL10 to get 10% off your total purchase at checkout. Thank you again to Travis Brown for coming on the show, and we'll see you guys again next time. Hey, remember, if you want to be a part of these interviews live, be the live tapings, and ask questions yourself, join our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/TBL_pod. For only $3 a month is all it costs to join our VIP section. You guys can also support us by going to Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi, Ko-fi. Head on over to tblpod.net and click the support button if you guys want to help us out there as well. We'll see you next month with a brand new interview and a brand new guest. Until then, as always, live well, rock on, take care, and bye-bye.